Got a little light room today. We'll get some more people in, I'm sure. Today's discussion, mastering an exit, choosing the best path for every deal. And this is very important for you guys to understand, whether you're listening on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, however you're watching. It is very important to understand how you're going to enter and then how you are going to exit the next deal. Super important to understand that. So without further ado, next slide, Seth.
Yeah, for anybody who doesn't know, anybody who's new, my name is Seth Timmerman. I'm based here in Morgantown, West Virginia. I've been here for about a year and a half. Started real estate investing in 2019 or so. Do a lot of wholesale, some fix and flips, and then my buy and holds, I focus on the small to medium size multifamilies. Also run a real estate meetup group, and then that's how I met Ray. And him and I started getting together on Tuesdays to give value to everybody here. So Ray.
And guys, good morning or good afternoon, good evening. That just shows how long it's been of a day. Welcome. Ray Glimp, over 100 doors, over 10 million in real estate deals. Probably be 11 million. I think we're at 11 million right now. So tons of deals, tons of experience here to help you guys, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, however you're watching, we're here to help you guys. Today's topic is beautifully prepared and very important. We get a lot of people who message us about, hey, I'm in this deal and I don't know what to do, or hey, I'm looking to sell or looking to buy. But most people don't have an exit strategy in mind. And so hopefully we can help you guys with preparing that from the beginning and knowing what your entry or exit ways out. Because the exit sometimes is more important than the entry. Okay, so it's very important for you guys to know, and a great topic for us to discuss. To the people tuning into, if you guys want the link on Zoom, just send me a DM. I'll get you guys signed into the Zoom. All right.
Yeah, I think it's this topic here is probably one of the most important. You get so many people when they're just starting out, all they're focused on is getting that deal, and they don't think about how they're actually going to exit. Investors, most of the time, we have to wait all the way to the very end until we get paid. So having that end in sight in the beginning is important. Before we get started, though, the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any organization. The content provided is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as professional, legal, medical, or financial advice. Listeners are encouraged to conduct their own research and consult with appropriate professionals before making any decisions based on the information provided in this podcast. Any reliance you place on such information is strictly at your own risk.
Awesome. So gold diggers, guys, we love to hear from you guys. Anybody in the chat, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, people in our Zoom, what goals you've accomplished, any small goals, big goals. We love to hear from you if you guys want to tap in. Goals for this week that you've accomplished. And let me get up the Facebook. Seth, you have any goals that you hit?
I would say that this week, probably my biggest win for this week was actually being able to help out with Ashley. I was able to get Ashley to come out to a property with me and do a property walkthrough. It was the first time that she ever got to do it. It kind of goes along with this group and the RIA and everything else to do. I really enjoy working with new investors. So giving the opportunity to be able to walk with her through a property for the first time was a lot of gratitude for me personally.
Love that.
I was just putting that in the chat that I saw a wholesaler in action and got to take some notes and actually get the whole experience and meeting with somebody selling their property and getting to ask those kind of questions and build that repertoire with them and rapport.
Awesome.
Anybody else want to share any goals? Any things they've accomplished this week?
Well, I know I said it already before, but I finally got my very first unit posted on Marketplace and have got lots of messages. And I've been getting through your modules, Ray. So
Good.
I'm excited about that too. I'm just all the learning.
Good. Finally, you finally soaking it in, and I'm happy for you. Anybody else? Any small wins that you guys might have had this week?
I gotta. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I was able to accomplish on one of my properties I have on Airbnb. It's fully rented the entire month, and that I've been trying to get done. You know, it's kind of a milestone. Once I do that, and I know you can count on maximizing my earning potential on a property. So I accomplished that today.
Congratulations. I know how tough Airbnb can be too. I got a partnership with somebody who manages Airbnb. So congratulations on that. And I'll share with you guys. My goal this year was actually to flip 4 properties before the end of the year. And I think we've identified, Seth and I think has identified one. I have one on my own, and then I'm looking to line another one up. So I'm almost halfway to my goal of flipping 4 properties for this year. And if you guys find a property for me, I will pay you a finder's fee if you find something for me. I love to flip property in your neighborhood if we can find it. So appreciate it. Awesome. On to the next.
Found that it was actually through Redfin. They were kind of posting the different things, but it was a news article talking about the Fed meeting that happened on May the 1st. And good news, bad news, right? They didn't really see anything that was going to change their direction from doing any more hikes or anything like that. They're not committing to any of their drops. Like they said that they may have 3 or 4 this year. They didn't commit to any of those. One of the things that came out of that article that I saw was that it's probably going to be everything, that all their decisions are going to be heavily determined on the inflation report, which comes out actually on May the 15th.
Yeah. I think it's important for you guys to know. I study, I don't know if you guys notice, I study a lot into what the Fed's doing, how it affects your everyday lifestyle, how it affects my everyday lifestyle. And I know a lot of people are kind of feeling in their pockets, right? You know, inflation, if you're broke, if you don't have money, if you're poor, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, inflation hurts you the most, right? I went to the grocery store the other day, and I hadn't gone to the grocery store in Lord knows how long. And I went to the grocery store the other day. I had about 8 bags. It was $200. And I was like, man, this ain't what life's supposed to be. Is this how much I've been spending on groceries this whole time? And it's crazy to see. So this affects not just real estate. It affects everything day to day. We do expect rates to go down. When, we don't know. It's pretty sticky right now. That's the word they're using. Inflation is really sticky. So the sooner rates come down, probably the better for your pockets. But for finding homes and real estate, it's going to get tough. As soon as rates go down, you're going to see more people into the market. So again, if you can afford to buy now, if you can start to like invest now, it's a great opportunity to start to invest now. If you got your first one, your first 2, congratulations. If you're looking and you're under contract for your first 1 or your first 2, congratulations. I still believe this is one of the best times to buy. And opportunity is everywhere. It is everywhere. And I'll share this with you guys too. I didn't look at it, but I just got a message for a $1.2 million asset. And the entry point is $40,000, right? $40,000 to get into a $1.2 million asset. So typically that would mean I spend about $300,000 all in to get into this asset. You're able to get in for $40,000. There's opportunity all around you, right? So maybe you don't find assets as big as I find, but maybe you could find a $120,000 house that you can get in for $4,000, right? This is the opportunities that you would, if I were you guys, I would be looking for 100%. These are opportunities that I'm looking for, and that can make a lot of money.
I'll actually say that, you know, especially dealing with off-market properties and stuff like that, as much as I do, talking to sellers and their expectations and things like that, the way the rates are now, the way that the market is right now, it's harder to get people to move out because they've got a lower interest rate than they can get right now. So where can they relocate, still afford and stuff like that? But when it comes to properties that they don't live in, the rental properties, vacant properties, inherited properties, whatever it happens to be, it's actually easier to make deals happen now than it is when it's an ultra aggressive market, rate for 3 and 4%, stuff like that. Prices are appreciating 20% per year and stuff like that because they have an unrealistic expectation of what their beat up house with no renovations is worth. Now you can have a conversation with them and you can say, hey, you know, money costs a lot of money right now. And start having that conversation like, oh, you know what? I didn't even think about that. You're absolutely right. And you can actually get better deals now, in my opinion, than you would be if rates had stayed the same or are going, you know, not going up.
Yeah. And guys, we actually doing this today. Except you can go to the next slide, but we're actually doing this today. We're looking at deals today on a low dollar. We're getting deals penny on, like I said, 40,000 to get into I think it's like a 14 unit for 1.2 million. That's less than 100,000 a door. To get into it for $40,000, unheard of, right? It's crazy to hear that. So I mean, the last building I bought, well, one of the buildings, I mean, I'm looking at 100,000, 200,000. So finding these deals for that 30, 40, 50,000 is like a sweet spot. Like I'm scooping them all day because I know the long play is to hold it. But I go in with a certain strategy. So today's point is to know your strategy, specifically your exit strategy, guys. And shout out to Seth, because Seth beautifully prepared this presentation for you guys this week. I'm gonna give you all the credit, Seth. So the most common exits for real estate investors are wholesale, right? Fix and flip, buy and hold, the lease option, and owner finance. Okay, we kind of talked about creative finance last week, and you guys got a sample of that. And we'll kind of talk about, Seth, we're going to break each of these down, right? The next slides. Cool.
Yep.
So for me, whenever I buy something, I know when I buy it, typically I like to have 2 or 3 of these options, right? So I'm looking at a property right now, which has the option of I could wholesale it, I could fix and flip it, or I can buy and hold it, right? That's the strategy that I'm looking at right now. So when I go into buy these assets, that's what I'm thinking from the beginning is what's my exit strategy if I need to really exit too.
Yep, 100%. And I think like when you're, I mean, a lot of people are looking to build a portfolio. You know, that's their ultimate goal: get a portfolio, build generational wealth, gain passive income, and everything that comes along with it. And a lot of people tell you, make sure that you're buying in B-class neighborhoods and things like that, you know, in the nice areas. Well, when you're doing your renovations or you're buying homes and stuff like that, like if you're doing it to the point where you're not going to have a bunch of deferred maintenance, then you always have that fix and flip option. If you're focused on the D-class areas, you may not be able to flip that and get your money back out. If you focus on low-end renovations and stuff like that, you put it on the market, you may not get it. So there's people that say, you know, hey, to rent it out, we only need to do this much, but to flip it, we got to do a whole lot more. Honestly, a lot of people that do that, they get themselves in trouble because they lock themselves into one type of exit strategy.
Yeah. So good. And these are really important, like parts for you guys to consider when you're starting to invest. And these are things that I look at too when I decide, hey, am I going to fix and flip this? Am I going to buy and hold this? One are your resources and skills, right? Do you have the people to help you flip this thing or renovate it? You know, what are their skills? What are their skill sets? Can they just paint? Do you just have painters? Or do you have guys who can do a whole roof? What is that roof going to cost you? Market conditions, very important. So right now, I would like to say we're still in the buyer's market, but there are very few buyers, right? So what is the market like in your area? That's very important. So when you look at like Florida and Texas, guys, and people aren't talking about this enough, but Florida is they're kind of going through it right now. They're going through it. Texas is kind of going through it. They got properties sitting 90 days on market, 120 days on market. They can't sell property in Florida, right? So what's the market? You could go to Florida and try to do a fix and flip, but what does that mean for you? You might not be able to sell it, right? So that's super important to understand what the market conditions are, how long things are sitting on the market. the property condition. What does it take for me to flip this or buy and or hold this? What's the condition of this? Very important for me to understand as well. The speed of return. Seth, this was a great one. The speed of the return. So, and I look at this for fix and flip too, especially like if I go to buy something, how long is it going to take me to renovate this? Holly, you going through this right now. How long does it take you to renovate your project? Is it 5 days or is it 50 days? Right? Because that affects your strategy. If I could go in and get it turned in 5 days, all right, cool. I might buy and hold this. I might flip it. But that's also going to determine the length of renovation I have to do too. Right? Do I have to do new cabinets? Do I have to do new countertop? Do I have to do new windows? If I'm going to rent this, I might not need to do that. But if I'm going to flip this, I might need to do that. Legal and tax implications are huge. Doing a flip at the wrong time of year can cost you more than it can make you sometimes. And then your risk tolerance. I love that, Seth. Your risk tolerance and your goals. There are times that you guys hear me say, I don't flip. It's not really my thing. Right now, I have so much depreciation that I need to make more money and show more money to offset that depreciation because I bought so much good real estate. Right? So what are your risk tolerance? What are your goals? Or if you're working a W-2, do you have the time to really flip a property? Right? Because in that, it's going to take a lot of management. Do you have that time? So these are all things that you really need to be considering when you start to look at, hey, am I going to flip this property? Am I going to buy and hold this property? What's my strategy when I go into this thing?
Yeah, they all kind of intermingle too. And so it's real important to kind of understand them separately, but how they all affect each other, right? Like when you're talking about the level of or the length of a repair project, right? Property condition, speed of return. That's one of the biggest factors when I determine whether or not it's going to be a wholesale versus flip, right? If this is going to be a project that's going to be a 6 month or a 9 month renovation, something like that, my return's got to be a lot higher for me to be able to take on that added risk that's along with holding property for 6 to 9 months and having contractors in there for 6 to 9 months working, right? And I'm normally, like, my rule of thumb between the two of them, fix and flip versus wholesale, if I can get away with 25% of my projected profit on a fix and flip, and I can get away with 25% of that by assigning it, I would much rather not take on the risk that is involved with working with contractors and delays and holding costs and everything like that goes into the renovation, and just take that 25% and move on to the next deal, because both of them are going to be one-time payments.
Yeah.
But that's my personal stuff in my business and my personal risk tolerance for my company. So it's all going to be different for each person.
Yeah. So the factors to consider. And again, whenever you're looking at your next deal, think about these. I want you guys, if you haven't, write them down. Think about these when you're looking at your next deal. So whether you're going to wholesale, and wholesale is going to have low investment. It's going to have some type of investment. It's going to take some time. You can do a fast transaction, one-time transaction. It is very transactional. I wouldn't say it's transactional though, Seth, because you can make a connection with the person and get another property off of them.
Sometimes,
yeah.
But, I mean, the buyer connection for sure, you can absolutely connect there and network and grow a relationship and stuff like that. But once the property's sold,
that's it.
You don't have any more. That's kind of where that one-time transaction comes from.
Yeah.
You get paid and then you're done.
And so if you're entering, like if you're just getting started in real estate, wholesale. If you can, wholesale. And that might just be finding a good deal and sending it to somebody who's looking for one. If you don't have the capital to get into the game right now, or you're looking to raise capital, a wholesale is a great way to raise capital. Now check wherever you're at, make sure it's legal wherever you're at, and make sure you get whatever license is necessary. But to wholesale is great. Vince, you got a question? You want to ask a question?
Yeah, my literal question is, when is it appropriate to ask questions? Because I have a couple of questions on this specific thing, but I don't want to break the rhythm.
Sure. You can put it in the chat. You can put it in your chat or just raise your hand just like you did. If you want to ask a question, shoot it. We don't care. That's what we're here for.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question regarding wholesale is, I'm still in my first gear. I have reacquired properties and I've done them kind of the hard way. And so I would almost be backtracking by doing wholesaling, but it does, you piqued my interest when you said using it to raise capital. So I know there's a lot of factors involved, like having a network. Who is the pool of buyers that you're assigning it to? Mm-hmm. And without that, it kind of becomes non-existent for somebody like me. Do you guys have people that you could recommend where, potential, because myself and my partner, we found a really, really good deal that we just weren't in a position to buy because we were leveraged so deep. And there was 6 figures of equity to be made. And we just kind of had to let it go because we didn't have anybody to assign it to. And that was never our initial strategy, but provided that occurs, I would like to know what's the way to do that.
Yeah, and you're in New Jersey, right? From our conversation earlier.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I would assume, and you said you were an hour and a half away from New York, so you're probably in southern New Jersey.
Yes. Well, it's central, but it is, it's an hour and a half south of New York.
Gotcha. I would assume that your investor market and the number of buyers in that market is high, just based on population. And so I would assume in this market that dispositions is probably not going to be too hard, or finding a buyer is not going to be too hard in that area. You just need to be set up properly to be able to do it. Wholesaling at its core is lead generation business. So doing it as a business is completely different than what you're talking about, coming across the deal and then adding it to your portfolio of exit strategies that you can use. Once you understand it, just depending on where the deals are coming from, you can put wholesale into your transactions at any time. It's not a step back by any stretch. It's just a way to monetize something that you would walk away from.
Yeah.
And with that type of mindset, you can absolutely do that.
And I know this is something that we were going to talk about anyway. Seth is going to be hosting a class. When are we doing that? Next Tuesday, Seth?
Well, next Tuesday is how to find the deal, I think, and then we're going to kind of get into it. Yeah.
So Seth is going to be hosting a wholesale, pretty much it's wholesale and one-on-one, as we're getting some questions on some other channels too. For wholesale. So if you guys want to learn more, I think in 2 Tuesdays, make sure you're on. He's going to be hosting wholesale and one-on-one. If you want to learn the specifics, ins and outs, that'll be a great time to actually ask the question specifically on wholesaling. And then shout out to our guy Matt Hawkins. If we can get Matt on too, Seth. I don't know if we talked about him, Lumberjack Landlord. I want to get him on too. A ton of value, so we can get him on as well. And again, if you guys have questions, you can just put in the chat. You can ask it. We're happy. This is what we're here for. We're here to answer your questions. So I'm happy to help you if we can. Seth, you want to go ahead? We're talking about fix and flip. I guess
just kind of the different points to what differentiates these 5 different exits and some key differences between them. Fix and flip. Obviously, one of the things that you need to focus on that is how you're going to fund this deal, especially if it's not going to be in all cash. Remember that you're going to need money for a down payment for a hard money loan or buy the property outright. You're going to need either working capital or the full renovation budget. You need holding costs, everything that goes along with it. So how are you going to fund that? What your renovation scope is, and does that fit into that first thing that we were talking about on things to consider, your abilities, skills, right? A lipstick fix, I like to call them, or a cosmetic fix. Super easy. You can go in there and put paint and change out some cabinets and things like that. But when you get into like foundation issues and termite damage, my first flip was a termite damaged house where we ripped out every single floor joist, not floorboards, floor joist in the house. So knowing what you're getting yourself into up front, and if you don't know, is that going to be the right thing for you?
Yeah.
Market trends is super important when you're fixing flipping. Knowing those days on market that Ray was talking about, how, you're seeing 90 days on market. That means 90 more days of holding costs that you're going to have to do if it has to sit on the market that long. And also you need to project that out too, right? So how is it trending? Because right now could be different than what it is 6 months from now when your renovation is done. So understanding where your market's heading, and then the tax
Implications. I got you.
I might have been able to spell it. I don't even know if it's spelled right, to be honest. I'm a terrible speller, guys. So please forgive any misspellings. But you're opening yourself up for capital gains if you don't have that depreciation like Ray was talking about with hold properties and things like that to offset it. Because it is an active income. So.
Yeah. And that's the thing, guys. This for the fix and flip, it is very active. And I know people that are doing 20, they might be doing like 20 a quarter. Some people are doing 20 a month, right? Just think about the amount of crews that you have to have, your holding costs, right? And when we say holding costs, that might be stuff from as far as insurance. You have taxes, even though you're not paying them, you have taxes on it. There might be B&O taxes. All of that stuff, huh?
Lawn care. Oh
my God. Snow removal.
Don't flip houses in the summer.
You have utilities.
You got to pay to cut the grass.
Utility costs, right? You have, if depending on how you're flipping, you might have some staging costs. So these are all things that you need to consider before you do it. And then
flip a house in West Virginia in January. Have your contractor be cold natured and be burning up a $200 gas bill
easily. And then your renovation scope, again, when you get into it, hey, look, am I going to paint these cabinets that I have? Because if I'm going to flip this, I'm going to have to probably put in new cabinets. I'm going to spend my money in the kitchen. I'm going to spend my money in the bathroom, right? Whereas if it's a rental, I can go with a cheaper flooring. I can go a little bit cheaper because I don't really care about the appraisal rate right now. I'm looking for more. Let me find a tenant that can make it their home versus somebody who's going to make it a permanent home for the next 10 to 20 years. So those are all things that we factor in from the beginning, especially when we talk about fix and flips.
The other three exit strategies we'll go over: buy and hold, Ray's wheelhouse for sure, right? I think the three most important things in that strategy that you have to factor in is, what are you going to do immediately to get your tenants in place? What are you going to have deferred down the line? Are you going to be 2 years until that roof needs to be replaced, or 20 years until that roof needs to be replaced? And then how is your property management set up? Are you going to be actively managing that property and paying yourself to do so? Or are you going to be paying property management? So a lot of people think about self-managing their properties and don't factor in paying themselves for that work.
Yeah. And property management is not easy. The thing you bought in immediate repairs, right? The biggest thing about having a property when you go to purchase a property is what I call stabilizing, right? The stabilization of it. So when I get this property, that mortgage has to get paid. I don't want to be the one paying it. The insurance has to get paid. The taxes have to get paid. Utilities have to get paid. Lawn care has to get paid. Who is going to be the person paying it, right? You want to make sure you get your tenants in established first, and then from there have room to build upon, right? So when I buy something, I'm always looking at, okay, this is my debt structure. This is how much it costs me. It costs me $6,000, $10,000 a month. I need to stabilize this property within this time period so that way I can break even. And then after that, everything becomes positive income. So when I go for the buy and hold, I'm immediately thinking about, like, get it stabilized, go right at the jugular, stop the bleeding. And then from there, all right, what else can I fix? What else can I upgrade over time? Like deferred repairs might be okay. The roof needs replaced, but I could wait 6 months or a year to replace that roof. Where if it's a fix and flip, I know I got to replace that immediately because that's something I'm going to have to sell it with a new roof. So those are the things that we factor in on a buy and hold.
On a lease option, just so that we're all on the same page, what a lease option basically is where you are taking on somebody and you're giving them, it's a rent-to-own type situation, but they are a tenant buyer. They're not actually just your tenant. So they have an option to purchase this property for X amount of dollars by X date.
Mhm.
and all of that is set up in your option fee and terms. They'll pay a fee to have that ability to lock in that price today.
Yeah.
And you're able to set that price for whatever it is. But you want to vet your tenant buyers, because typically those are situations where people maybe they have new businesses, and so they don't have the verifiable income that it takes to be able to be approved for a mortgage, or they need things that they're working on. That's very commonly what lease options are used for, is people that don't qualify for conventional mortgages, how they can buy a house and then repair their credit to qualify for a loan in 2 to 3, maybe 4 years, however you structure it out. But understand that you need to vet your tenant buyer very well to know that they're going to be able to make those payments. And also how you're going to negotiate what your fee and your terms are. Your fee is up front. That's not necessarily considered down payment. It's not something that's refunded back to them either. That is basically their entry into the deal. And it can be great, and it needs to be structured properly. Won't get too deep into it.
Yeah.
And then a potential appreciation. You need to understand that if you're locking in a price at today's rate, and then they follow through with this lease option and they pay you off in 3 years, let's say, they're not necessarily paying 3 years price. They're paying today's price, unless you negotiate it to where there's at a little bit higher rate than what market is. So understand that you may lose out versus just renting it out for 2 or 3 years and then selling it to a qualified buyer after 3 years and renting it out.
And Seth, let's talk about the lease option real quick. All right. Because one, it's a beautiful opportunity to help someone who might not be able to get traditional financing. Right. I think that's the biggest for the tenant or the buyer. You're kind of helping them out. However, I think the percentage was 95% of people don't exercise the option to purchase. It's like a startling percentage. So for an investor, that's great for you because you've made X amount of money, right? Because typically, let's say I go buy a property, guys. I'll give you an example. Let's say I go buy a property and it's $100,000. I need $5,000 in renovation to this project, right? I then go list that property for sale for, let's say, $190,000 with a $5,000 down payment. So that $5,000 I put into that property, I got that $5,000 right back out, right? It's a great opportunity to create wealth, and people do these with businesses. You see it more with businesses than I do real estate now at this point in my career. There are lease options out there, but I'm seeing a lot with businesses. It is a great way to purchase for people who don't traditionally apply. Somebody asked a question. Actually said, "Are payments higher with lease option versus regular renting?" Yeah. So you got to think about it. You're putting skin in the game. So typically, if you were to rent it, let's say on the open market for $1,000, the payments might be $1,200. And usually, what I see is that they'll structure them in a way that the $200 goes to principal. And it might depend on each deal, but $200 will go to the principal, and $1,000 just goes to your rent. Seth, how have you seen them structured? Because you might be more familiar than I am with them.
Yeah, typically you're looking, and it depends on every deal and what price point you're working at and stuff like that. But typically you're looking to get anywhere between $15,000 to $30,000 on that option when you're doing the lease options. And then it depends on your market again, property values versus rental rates and stuff like that. It's very common, or it's very similar to what a mortgage payment would be. A lot of people actually amortize it out like 30 years. But then they give you a 36-month balloon, right? So a 36-month time period to cut off to where you have to refinance them out. And that's all it is. It's giving you 3 years to get into the property, and then giving you 3 years to be able to get your credit up to where you can refinance out of that property. And it can be a great strategy. Like Ray was saying, when you got 95% of the people that end up not exercising the option for whatever reason, is people move, people relocate, people can't get their credit back. There's a multitude of different reasons, but they don't actually get that option fee back. And then you can turn around and do the exact same thing. I know investors that I've worked with personally and sold houses to, that is their only strategy that they do, is they purchase houses, they fix it up, and they lease option, and they just have all their portfolio benefit to the investor too is that you're, as a landlord, you're required to do that property maintenance with that property management, stuff like that, where a tenant buyer they're the ones responsible for all the maintenance and repairs.
Yeah. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think the thing is when reason they don't execute it, one, their credit might not be the best at the time. Financial situation might not be the best to refinance. And then you also think about, I think the average person stays in a house for about 7 years max, right? Usually after about 7 years, average person moves. So if you've been in there for 3 to 5 years, at that point, you're ready to upsize too. Hopefully you're in a better position and you want something else, So I think those are reasons that people may not, what if it doesn't appraise, right? If you sell it for a higher price and it doesn't appraise, well, look, this is what my price is. This is what we agreed upon. It could be like a tough luck situation, right? So, great strategy. I've honestly never used it, except for I've used it in business, but never on real estate. But very interesting strategy.
Yeah. I think Ron LeGrand is famous for this strategy. He's done coaching for years and years and years. He's one of the original guys on YouTube and stuff like that. But he does a lot of the lease options and talks about it. And the last option here was the owner finance, and that is where you're actually selling at owner finance. And that kind of goes along with that long-term hold where you're not expecting them to pay you off in 2 years or 4 years or however long it happens to be. You plan on holding this note the entire time. You want to take advantage of the depreciation of it, right? Whatever it happens to be. You want to make sure that your buyer's credit is solid in this situation. You want to go ahead and try to, vet them like they are a buyer, like you're a bank, and underwrite it that way. Negotiating what rate and term that you're going to offer, especially if you're buying it. A lot of people will buy something with Creative Finance and then turn around and do a wrap to sell it with Creative Finance. So if you've got a 10-year term that you're purchasing it on, kind of matching or beating that term when you're selling it is important. Down payment, typically on owner finance, that's where a large sum of your profit is going to come from in that initial down payment. So negotiating that well. And then how are you going to handle, because you're going to be the one responsible as the bank handling any type of foreclosure situation that may arise.
Yeah. And owner finance is kind of like the easiest strategy to get out, I think, out of all of these. If you really need to exit the deal, finding somebody who will do owner finance. Most people that do owner finance, right? If I offered, again, like I told you guys, if I offered this $1 million building, I said, hey, give me $10,000 down. It's not as hard to find that pool of buyers, right? It's the barrier to entry. So when I tell you, hey, I got $1 million building, I need $200,000 down. There's a lot less people with 200 versus the 10,000. So on my end, it would be more due diligence in vetting these people, right? And knowing the downside and the risk to it, because these people who are owner finance too, they could destroy the building. They could destroy your house. They could destroy the asset. Yeah, you made 10,000, but it would cost to you. And then like you mentioned, the potential risk of foreclosure, you might have to foreclose on them. You might have to get the property back. Again, similar lease option when you can get the property back and resell it again. Which I've done that too. I've gotten stuff back and resold it again. And I've sold it for more. Actually, the second time I got it back. So these are all different options and exit strategies for you guys to consider when you start, thinking about investing and getting in and out of deals.
I think people, when they structure out the lease option, especially with that end date so close in mind and stuff like that, like they're prepared to, if these guys don't pay or if they don't do, what's going to happen. They're already thinking that way. Investors that are structuring out these options. Some people, when they're structuring out their owner finance, they don't even really, they think that, hey, I'm going to get payments for the next 30 years or 20 years or whatever it happens to be. They're not really thinking about that foreclosure type situation. What happens if I stop paying you? So it's an important thing to think about.
Very important. And so even when you go into owner finance, you want to be thinking 2 steps ahead. Like, okay, if this does foreclose, my next strategy is to do X, Y, Z with it, right? Because just like the bank, you're going to be thinking for the next 5 years, 3 years. Like, what if this guy doesn't pay me? Like, what if they don't pay me? And it's different. It's different if a tenant doesn't pay you, right? One tenant doesn't pay you, you can handle it. But if you have a bigger asset, 4 units, 2 units, and now both units you're not getting paid from, then you got a bigger issue, right? But again, you have the opportunity to go in, sell it again, make some more money. I mean, if you got to think, if your barrier point is 10,000, you could go ahead and make another 10,000 very easily overnight. So those are the bonuses of lease option and owner finance, I think. And that's why I think so many savvy investors in today's market are willing to do owner finance, because they see the benefit of, okay, if you fail, I know the property is going to be worth more. I'll go in. You're going to spend your money probably to fix it up. And if you fail, then I'll just take the property back over in better shape.
And the difference between selling, whether it's lease option or owner finance, that initial sale, that initial time versus like a fix and flip. Fix and flip is almost always contingent on that retail buyer getting retail funds from a lending institution, whatever that mortgage company has to be. So appraisals, inspections, and things like that are highly important, and can be very strict, especially if you start getting the FHA and stuff like that on the things that they look at.
Yeah.
A lot more flexible with lease option and owner finance options too. So.
Yeah. And then even the owner finance portion, I could bring this in here too, guys. So let's say and this goes back to the creative finance, what we talked about last week. Let's say you go to take down a property, right? Say something that's not in your budget. Let's just say it's $200,000, right? You don't have the down payment. The owner finance portion could be the down payment. So let's say you can go to the bank and say, hey, look, I need a loan for $160,000. The owner is going to finance the other $40,000. That could be the owner finance portion. Right. So that's where you get creative with these things. That person might go and go refi at the bank. You could just finance, you get the $160,000, and then you finance the $40,000 over the next 10 years or however long it may be.
Yep.
So these are just all great ways to strategize when you're getting in and have an exit. Super important.
What I did here at the end is where you said the factors that we kind of consider, like they all intermine and intermingle. So I came up with a couple of questions that I like to ask myself when I'm analyzing the deal, when I try to determine what exit we're going to be using. How much is needed for this property to be rent ready, and how much is this needed for this property to be HGTV ready, level of repairs that are going to be needed, length of time that it's going to take, repair budget, resources needed, contractors that I'm going to have to get involved versus general contractor versus me being a GC. All those things kind of affect the answer. That answer kind of affects all those answers.
Yeah, very important. So before we wrap up, guys, any questions? Love to hear from you guys. If you do have any questions, a great time to ask. I know it's kind of a lot of information. For wholesale, what's the best marketing to get? That's a whole wholesale question. If you guys want, we can answer some other questions. If you guys don't care on a Zoom, if you guys don't have any questions on a Zoom, I can jump to the other section then.
Yeah.
For wholesale, what's the best marketing method to start with? No matter the budget, just the one that can get the best results. What do you think, Seth?
There is no silver bullet. They all work.
It
It just depends. It depends on your market. It depends on where you're at. Depends on, when I talk about marketing for wholesale, I like to budget my thing 3 different ways: time, energy, and money. There's absolutely marketing out there that can cost no money at all, but it's going to take a lot of time and effort. Where there's some marketing that you can pay $4,000 and $5,000 per lead that they're probably going to close very quickly too. So
yeah,
just depends on your budget. Pay per lead is a great source, and driving for dollars is probably a low cost great source.
Yeah. I think it depends on you too, right? Can you network? Are you a networker? Right. I think your network is the easiest way to find deals. Most of the deals that I've ever got bought to me were just like, hey, Ray, I got this property that I don't know what to do with it. Cool. Yep. So what's your network like? Establishing a network. And Vincent, I think that was something that we could kind of hint to too, is making sure that your network is solid. Maybe start networking with buyers, other active buyers, get into groups with them, and then that way you have a connection with them. So when the next property does pop into mind, you can say, hey, look, I got this one. right?
Yep.
And I think I have a list of probably like 6 or 7 guys that just want to buy stuff, right? So you want to start forming your list of, just like real estate agents. I mean, they got lists, and so just look at it just like an agent. Like, you want to have your list of buyers, you want to have a list of sellers, and keep both of them as full as you can.
Yep.
So awesome question. Hopefully we answered that question for Instagram. Any other questions, guys? Happy to answer. Easy. You guys making it easy on us. This is great.
Yeah, real quick, I got something.
Sure.
I'm curious about the REI meets. So is that like a particular? Is it on weekends? Because I'd really like to be a part of that in Morgantown, just to face to face meet some people.
Yeah. So Seth hosts that. Seth hosts that once a month.
Okay.
Curtis, if you could send a DM or send
All right.
Seth, if you could send Curtis your information. But guys, these real estate investment meetings are happening in your town, no matter where you're at.
They
They're
happen all
happening.
over the place.
Yeah.
So you hear them if you search for them, whether it's on Google or Facebook or wherever it happens to be, REIA, Real Estate Investors Association. You can find a lot of them that way, but some of them are just real estate meetup. Like, there's so many different word phrases that you can find. I know a friend of mine, he's in just outside of Dallas, and he's like, there's 75 meetings a month in my area. Like, it's impossible to go at all of them. The reason why I started Mountain Area in Morgantown was because it wasn't one here. The closest one was in Pittsburgh. So
Yeah.
there was a need for it, and it's been a great thing. We put together a lot of deals in that group and made a lot of great connections.
Yeah.
But
Nice.
yeah, I mean, they're all over the country. So just going out, and Facebook's a great place to find those things, to be able to find, your town with REIA, your town with real estate. You'll find groups all over the country that meet, and it's an amazing place to network and find mentors, find buyers, find sellers, find deals, find
Yeah.
everything.
And guys, just get into that room where you can meet those people, and it might not have to be face to face. I mean, this is a meetup here. When you think about it, it's an educational meetup. When you think about it, so get into the Facebook groups. They hosting these for free. This is free education right here, right? We won't go deep into everything on a Wednesday call. If you guys haven't signed up, sign up for the Wednesday call. On a Wednesday call, that's when we dive deep and we're super specific to what you guys need. But we pretty much grace and glide over most stuff for the day-to-day investor that will help you get you through your first deal almost. So make sure, if you can, tune in, get into those groups. Just type real estate, like Seth said, real estate investment group in that area.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Curtis, just so you know, it's the fourth Thursday of every month, except for November and December, because their holidays fall on that. So they normally bump it up on those days. Throughout the month, like this month, May, whatever the fourth Thursday is, I can't do the math in my head. But it'll be the fourth Thursday in Morgantown. Just shoot me a message. We'll connect.
Yeah.
For sure. Definitely will. Thank you.
No problem. And we'll see Curtis. Curtis just joined the Inner Circle as well, so Curtis will be on tomorrow as well. Guys, the Inner Circle is a great group to be a part, especially if you're just getting started. We love to have you guys on. Vincent, you want to ask? Go ahead, Vincent. You're muted. You're muted, Vincent. I don't know. You raised it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sorry. So how do we use the same login for your Wednesday night meeting, or is it a totally different login? Or how do we
The
sign up?
Wednesday night is a total different one. It's paid. It's $9 a month, but it's specific to you. I can send you a link, Vincent. I'll put the link in the group chat for you guys if you guys do want it. I'll put it in the Zoom chat. And to the guys listening on other places, just send me a DM. I'll get you the link to it. But it's $9 a month, and I will send you a link to it right now. I'm going to put the link in the group chat. But it's tons of value. We speak super specific to you guys. Your journey. We dive deeper into the content that's here. There's a lot of money made in that Wednesday group, Seth. What do you say?
Oh, yeah.
Is
We're going to hit 7 figures this year. No
Yeah.
doubt about it.
So I'm gonna send the link. I'm gonna put the link in the group chat for you guys if you guys are interested. If you're not a part, we'd love to have you there. Well, it's in a group chat, and I think tomorrow we'll kind of talk deeper into this and figuring out your strategy to start investing, like and figuring out what properties you should be looking for and how to get further into it. How you're gonna do your next flip. I'm gonna show you guys one of the flips. Seth, maybe we can even show them the flip. It's not under contract, right?
Oh yeah, there may be about noon tomorrow.
Okay, maybe we can show them the flip that we're gonna work on, and I might be able to show you guys some flips that I'm working on. And I love to hear from you guys and see what projects that you're gonna work on. And maybe we can give you some guidance on what we will be doing right now. Especially, I know Curtis, you might be interested in wholesaling, so getting on and learning that wholesale, that game is gold. You know, the assignment fees making. I mean, I know guys that are wholesaling. They're doing what? They're probably doing 6 figures a month just on wholesale. Just wholesaling. So I just saw somebody just wholesale the deal. I think the assignment fee was like $200K. It's crazy, right? So, but if you ask most real estate investors, most of them got their capital starting from wholesaling, right? So that's kind of something you definitely want to have in your bag, and we'll teach it. Seth is going to host a great masterclass in 2 weeks.
It also gives you the opportunity when you're wholesaling, when you're brand new. Like the reason why it's used for so many people in the beginning is because there's so many different ways to make money in real estate, and you just don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And it's probably the lowest risk, lowest level of investment that's needed to get in. And then you learn how powerful networking is, working with guys like Rick, guys like me, you know, guys in this room, right? And you end up learning strategies that successful people are using, and you're like, you know what? I could do that really, really well. And that's how their real estate journey starts.
Yeah. Any other questions before we wrap up, guys? It's been a pleasure tonight. Hopefully we brought you guys some value. Make sure you tune in. Seth, you want to give them the ending quote?
Yeah, I found this one. I thought it was pretty good for determining the exits. Investing is a journey of self-discovery. It reveals your relationship with money, your tolerance for risk, and your ability to stay disciplined